So Craig, you're coming to Atlantic City for AC
Mhm.
Jokes. You're going to be at resorts on the 15th and the 16th. Talk
Yes.
to us about your routine, and then we'll go into, different projects and coming into Atlantic City and all that.
Well, I have a crazy backstory. I'm a comedian who's known for doing voices. I've always been able to do any voice that I hear because of how I grew up. And this is not a joke, by the way. This is a true story.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family is deaf. My
Wow.
mom, my dad, and my sister, all completely deaf. And I learned to have a real thick skin for comedy because the worst, most insensitive deaf jokes I've ever heard in my life were from deaf people. My own, like I remember a few years ago, we threw a surprise birthday party for my sister, and you can argue that anything for deaf people is a surprise, but we threw a surprise birthday party for my sister, and afterwards we're sitting down for dinner, and my sister's across the table from me. She's signing to me, and she waves to me, and she goes, "Do you want to hear a good joke?" And I said, "Sure." And then she said, "Me too." And I was like, what the, oh my God, what the, like, yeah. So I learned to have a great sense of humor from my family. And growing up in a deaf family, though, I couldn't learn how to talk from my family. I learned how to talk by watching TV and copying all the voices I heard on TV. So to this day, the weirder the voice, the easier it is for me to do it. And by the way, I never got an accent from
Yeah.
the Bronx. That's where I'm from. And
So
I
you're
always, yep. And everybody in the Bronx sounds like Tracy Morgan. Everybody in the Bronx talk like this, whether you black or white,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I was reading a little.
male or female. That's crazy.
That is so good.
Hey, this is the voice of your next door neighbor, and I'm a Vietnamese girl. That's crazy. Like everybody sounded like that. So yeah. So it became like this weirdo superpower, which is what the show is in Atlantic City this weekend. It's a lot of impressions and a
Okay.
lot of stories about the people who I do impressions of.
So talk to us about the impressions. Who do you like? First of all, who was your favorite to impersonate? And when the people come up to you after a show, what is the crowd favorite?
It's well, there's fun voices. I love weird voices are just easy. Like Christopher Walken sounds like a deaf guy because he's got no tone.
Okay.
And like weird voices like that are always lots of fun. I love doing bad impressions. I love
Okay.
I love settling halfway to an impression, and when my friends say that doesn't sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be like, "Oh, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger with COVID." Like I'll just so I can get away with something lame like, "I."
Yeah. That's all you have to do.
That's all I got. That's all I have. I think I could actually teach people how to do bad impressions because there's some impressions that are just so easy to do a bad impression of that I think it's actually teachable. Like Mark Wahlberg,
Mhm.
easiest impression to teach. It's two parts. You have to breathe heavy breathing. That's literally half the Mark Wahlberg impression is just breathing heavy. And the other half is saying just a few words at a time. Because for some reason, and they got to be stressful. Like the words have to be distressful because
Okay.
Mark Wahlberg's always stressed out in every movie
Yeah.
he's in. So heavy breathing, few words at a time. This is the whole Mark Wahlberg impression. Guys, are you serious? There's a car accident outside. You got to help me get the bodies out. That's literally the entire. I did that once at a show in Nashville, and a girl in the front row goes, "What movie is that from?" And I was like, "Every movie. What are you
Every
talking about?
movie.
Like that's
Well,
like have you never seen a Mark Wahl? That's like every Transformers movie, just Mark Wahlberg going, "Is that your car parked outside?"
yeah.
Like so, yeah. It's
That's
easiest
funny.
impression in the world to do.
I actually interviewed him. So now I feel like I got to go back to my interview and see if that's what he sounded like. Yeah.
How was he? Was he nice?
Yeah, he was nice. He was a little stressed out because he was in town for a workout like event that he was a part of, of course.
Of course. He was
And
out of breath when you talked to me. He just got done
probably
working
was.
out.
And
Yeah.
the funny thing was they played Good Vibrations, and I have him working out to that song, so I thought that was cool.
No way. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Did he God, do you ever look at his Instagram, Mark Wahlberg's Instagram?
I actually at that time I did, but I haven't recently now.
Nothing will make you feel worse than looking at his stories. He's in a gym every morning
Right.
at 3:30 in the morning complaining about somebody who didn't show up.
Yeah.
Hey Jimmy, where you at? We're ready to do some reps, buddy. Where you at? Like, it's just like, dude, what were you doing at 3:30 in the morning? Like, why can't you get up at a reasonable hour? Yeah, he's just,
I know that's his thing. I read an article that that's what he does, but that's how that's how you make the big bucks, I guess.
I can't. I'm staying like a few blocks away from a crumble cookie. I can't do it. Like, I have to have some cookies. I have to have some cookies, and I'll walk. Like, I'll get a walk in, but I'm not going to work out at 3. I'm not going to work out at all.
I know. Well, like yesterday, my husband said, let's go for a walk. I'm like, listen, I'll go to the mall and walk around. And he
Right.
actually agreed, even though he doesn't like the mall, because he wanted to walk. So we're both happy.
Oh, that's perfect. I love
Right?
that. I love that.
A happy
You know,
medium.
It's funny because I do talk about my mom in my stand-up because I lost my mom in November, and she was a gossip. She loved nobody. Loved gossip more than my mom. How a deaf woman hears so much gossip, I don't know, but all the way to the end, her health went really quick, and she ended up in a hospice. And all my friends were texting me saying, if you get another chance, make the most of it. And I kept over analyzing, if I get to have one more conversation, what am I going to say? I was like, I should ask her a question. And on November 9th, the day before my mom passed away, she opened her eyes and she sat up and just went, and I got up and I went, oh my God, this is it. This is it. And my mind started racing, and I said, hey, what's wrong? And I'm quoting, this would end up being the last thing my mother ever said to me. She said, did you see that Tom Brady and Giselle are getting divorced? And I went, what?
Like, how'd she even know that?
It's like, and she was intense about it. And I just kept thinking, like, is this a make-a-wish? Like, what am I? And I don't want to argue. In my opinion, I don't think you should ever argue with your mother. And I just looked at her and I went, do you think you have a chance? Or and my mother was 78. She pulled her bed sheets up and she went, I would never. And I said, okay, what do we do? Why am I talking about Tom Brady in a hospice? Like, I couldn't. Yeah. So she gave me a lot of material, and I'm grateful for that. And
I was reading about your parents. I think your mom was born deaf, but your father was born with hearing, but he lost his hearing in a car accident, right?
When he was a kid, he got into an accident that popped out his eardrums. Yeah. And he had to go to deaf schools for the rest of his life, which is where he met my mom at an all-deaf high school. And they had my sister first, and my sister's born with my mom's genes, completely deaf. And then I was born with my dad's genes with all my hearing. And I watched a lot of TV, and I started picking up voices on TV, and I was always talking in different voices and different dialects. And then as a comedian now, I'll get like homework assignments from Howard Stern or from Family Guy, and like, hey, can you do this voice? And Family Guy, which I'm a huge fan of. So I was excited they found me on YouTube. Okay. And my first episode with them, have you ever done this? Have you ever, like, you got a gig, you're gonna interview somebody, have you ever just, when you got there, you were just so excited about the person you were interviewing that you just overshot it a little bit?
Is that what happened? I mean, that's happened to me for sure. I'm like, I've interviewed thousands of people. So a lot of times I'm with people and I'm like, oh my God, how's this happening? Like, I grew up with you, and now I'm like, Oh, hey, we're on the red carpet together.
100%. And I think you get used to it to some level, but
Yeah.
then there are some people that you really,
Yes.
yeah. So every TV show I've been on has been a huge show. King of Queens, Sex and the City. I've been really lucky. But Family Guy was the first show I ever worked on that I personally was a fan of. I never watched Sex and the City before I was on it. I never watched King of Queens before I was on it. But Family Guy was like appointment television for me. So when I walked in and it was just me and Seth MacFarlane, I was just,
Oh, wow. That's
I
huge.
yeah, and I have my sides, and I'm coming in to read, and the recording session lasted like 5 minutes. I came in to do Al Pacino, and so I come in, and I remember my energy was already off the charts because every time he made a little joke, I would laugh too hard to where
Yeah,
I'd go,
right.
and he was like, "Relax," and I go, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he goes, "Let's just record. We'll get this done real quick." So I kept doing this one line as Al Pacino, where I was saying it was Al Pacino surrounded by a bunch of broken down washers and dryers, going, "You're out of order, and you're out of order, and you're all out of order." We did that 3 times. Like Seth kept leading me in with his Peter character. We'd say, this is crazier when Al Pacino was a slumlord laundromat tenant. And then I kept doing my Al Pacino line, and we did it 3 times. And he goes, "All right, I think we're good." But I'm so nervous because I think we're going to be friends now
Right.
that
Like
I stand up with my material and I go, "Hey, so you wanna hang out?" Or and he goes, what do you mean hang out? And I go, you want to grab a coffee or something?" And he goes, I got to work. And I said, "Oh, okay. You want me to leave?" And he goes, "Yeah, get the hell out of here." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Okay." I grabbed my material, I walked out, and they didn't call me again for 6 months. And then they started calling me, this woman, Linda, who was the casting director, started calling me and saying, "Hey, Craig, can you do this voice? Or can you do this voice?" And everything they sent me, I said, I can do whatever you need. I'll do whatever you need. And every time I get the gig and I get brought in, Seth MacFarlane is never around. It's always a guy named Mike Henry,
Okay.
who he did the voice of Cleveland and the creepy old guy. And every time I see Mike, I go, "Hey, Mike, is Seth around?" And every time I see him, he goes, "Don't worry about Seth. We'll get you out of here real quick," which is like, oh,
Oh, man.
yeah.
At
And
least you
I,
got to meet him, at least that was your initial meeting. That's cool.
yeah. And every time I go in there, there's always somebody in that waiting room that I don't expect to see, that I'll go, "Oh, wow." Like, you'll see famous people who are going to be cutting lines as well. Carl Reiner was in there once. Seth Green was in there. So yeah,
Do
that's
you, do you feel that, living in New York, that you had an advantage with this? Because there are a lot of people that do voices. So do you think you got discovered because of your location and because of your videos?
I think it's because of the internet. I never even auditioned for them. Linda discovered, I got a phone call. I'm at a basketball game in Phoenix, Arizona, and I see a 310 number calling me. I don't pick it up. It goes to voicemail. And during halftime, I was like, "Who's that call?" And I listen, and
Okay.
it's, "Hi, Craig. My name's Linda Lamontagne. I'm the casting director for Family Guy, American Dad, and The Cleveland Show," which was on the air at the time. "And we'd like to offer you a job." And I went, and
I know. Is this a
I,
scam?
yeah, I called her back the next day. It was late at night. I called her back the next day, and she said, "I was just looking for Al Pacino. I needed an Al Pacino impression, and I'm going through the internet. I'm going through YouTube, and I saw your Al Pacino, and I said, 'Oh, that's the guy. That's the guy.'" And then she said, "I noticed that people like to link up clips of all your impressions." So she started going through all my impressions. And she said that she called Seth MacFarlane, who was in his car at the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
she said, "Seth, you got to hear this guy that I just found on the internet." And she put the phone up to her computer. And over the phone, Seth MacFarlane said, "We'll hire him. Give him a job."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she said, "I don't know if you're available." When she said that, I was sitting in a Long John Silver's, and I was like,
You're like,
I'm
yeah.
totally available. And then I started working for them. So I think now with the internet, it's people think it's so hard to get on a TV show, but if you put stuff out there,
Yes, you could be
there are
discoverable.
people looking for talent. They're looking for people who can do things that nobody else can do. And it's shocking how easy that can be. So yeah, it was just and now I put my own stuff on the online and put stuff on social media and stuff. So
So when you worked on King of Queens, were
mhm.
you on set with them? Did you meet Leia Remini? Like, how was it?
I'm laughing because I'm like, this is going to be, you're about to notice a theme to my
Okay.
stories. So Kevin James um, was the last person to sign off on having me on the show. A writer named Mike Socio came up with my character for King of Queens. And Mike said, everybody wants you to do the show. We just need Kevin James to sign off on it. Kevin signed off on it. They showed him videos like, this will be great. Like, this guy does impressions. He could be the new guy at work, whatever. And I wanted to be friends with Kevin.
Yeah, of course you did.
And
Who wouldn't?
he was very aloof. I thought that Kevin and I would probably end up like being buds, and then Leah Remini struck me as someone that might be like have a tough shell or something, you know. And it ended up being the other way around. Leah and I
Yeah.
were calling each other horrible nicknames in the first 24 hours, and then Kevin was just kind of nice but distant.
Yeah.
And this is very pathetic, but during rehearsals, when rehearsals would end and I'd hear Kevin say, all right, so are we good? All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I would walk out the studio stage door and I would just be outside the exit, just so when Kevin came out, I'd be like, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
So pathetic. I would go, hey, Kevin, dude, thank you. Hey, man, thank you so much for getting me on the show, man. I'm so excited. And every day he would just go, oh, yeah, we're going to have fun. Yeah, yeah. And he just, and I was really bummed out. But 5, 6 years later, after thinking like, man, I didn't get a chance to bond with him. 5 or 6 years later, I go to the Super Bowl every year to interview players at the Super Bowl. I'm in the Super Bowl Media Center when Kevin James comes walking through with, I think, David Spade or Chris Rock. They're promoting that movie with Sandler that they did, that they all did together. And I can't remember the name of that movie.
No.
Grown Ups.
Oh, great.
Grown Ups. And Kevin's walking by with security. And as he walks by, I just go, hey, Kevin. And Kevin is walking. He looks and he does a double take and he goes, gas. Come here. He goes, come here. He goes, I got to get you to do your Sandler for the Sandman. And he walks me into a private room.
Oh, wow.
And Adam Sandler's in that room. And he goes, you got it. He goes, Adam, he goes, you got to hear this. This guy does an impression of you. You got to do it for him. He goes, this is Craig Gass. He remembered my name 5 years later. Yeah. And so I start doing the impression, you know, whatever. And then Sandler goes, oh, that's good, buddy. That's good. And I said, well, no, there's one more part of your impression, your laugh, where you go, ha, 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 ha. And he goes, all right, take it easy. But it was so nice of him to try to put me up there. And the fact that he remembered my name 5 years later was really, awesome. Really cool of him, thinking that I didn't bond with him at all, but he did remember me. Just maybe I was creepy. That's possible.
No, but you made an impression and you're professional and you're really good at what you do. So of course he remembered you. So when you say you go to the Super Bowl every year, is that with a specific news outlet or is that for your own content?
I'll do it for myself and send it out to the cities that are represented. I have so many friends in radio now that whatever cities are being represented in the Super Bowl, I have friends that do radio in those cities. Oh, so great. I'll get silly stuff from the players and I'll send it over. And it's silly. It's really, really silly. I've probably asked Tom Brady in 10 different ways what it's like to be handsome. That's all I ever talked to him about. I think the first time I met him, I said, Tom, you're so handsome. Like when you look in the mirror, does your reflection ever just wink at you? Like, is it? Yeah. And he laughed, and that ended up on ESPN because he actually laughed out loud at the question. That I was excited that it went viral and ended up on ESPN.
That's awesome.
And then, but he keeps coming back, and I know that you know this. When you get to interview somebody, you feel really excited and proud of what you got. Mm-hmm. But when you get a second chance to talk to somebody, you're like, but I already asked them all those things. What can I do? And every time you go back, it becomes a challenge of, how do I get more creative? And I started doing this thing with Tom Brady where I would just say, Tom, my name's Craig Gass. I'm a stand-up comedian. This is my buddy Jason. That's my buddy Aaron. We were discussing the four of us together as a group,
as a friend.
and we were ranking just from the four of us from most handsome to least handsome. Obviously, you're number one because you're Tom Brady. But Tom, who would you rank as number two, number three, and number four? And Tom actually looked and said, "Wait, who am I ranking?" And I go, "Me and this guy and this guy." And he goes, "All right, fan out." And I was like, "Oh, what? Okay." And we all and I didn't do this consciously. I did this subconsciously. I started sucking in my gut and pushing my chin out to look like more handsome for Tom Brady. And he ranked us, and he was great. So
for you, number two.
He was very diplomatic. He said 3-way tie for number two.
Oh, okay.
But then every year we see him at the Super Bowl, I'd go, "Hey, Tom, I don't know if you remember, you ranked us from most handsome to," and he goes, "Yeah, I remember you." And I go, "Well, of course you do. You're here at the Super Bowl every year." Well, listen, when you ranked us, we've been fighting over our rankings because between the three of us, we've lost 5 pounds, and we want to know if the rankings have changed. So we keep hitting him up to rank us every year. So
be creative with it.
Yeah, but I'm a big football fan, so I'm always out there at the Super Bowl every year doing that. So
that's great. Who's your favorite team?
My team is the Seahawks. Nobody cares about the Seahawks, but I love football, and I wanted to be here this week so I could catch the Eagles playing the home openers, the home opener at on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So that was my big thing about getting out here this week, because I love being able to get to all the stadiums and meet fan bases from everywhere in the country.
This is Eagles land here, so
of course.
don't go against the Eagles. Really fast with Howard Stern. I know you do a lot with him. What's it like working with Howard Stern?
Howard's been amazing to me. He gave me a career, and it's because of Howard that I ended up on King of Queens, Sex and the City. They were all phone calls that came to the Howard Stern show from people who heard me tell a story and said, "You'd be perfect on our show." And it would be some aspect of something I said on the Howard Stern show that got me those gigs. Sex and the City was a relationship that I just got out of, and I was really hurt about this relationship ending. And the call that I got from this girl at Sex and the City was, "We think you would play a really good insecure guy on Sex and the City." And I was like, "Oh, all right." But they also had this aspect of my character. I dated Miranda on the show, and they had this aspect that was so obscene. And I just thought, oh my God, that would be amazing. And it ended up being described by TV Guide as the most obscene moment in television history.
No way. Oh, I have to watch it now.
Yeah, it was very, I'll apologize up front because
I'll make sure
it's bad. Yeah, everything. Las Vegas. I did a show called Las Vegas on NBC.
I love it.
And they said, "Hey, we got this." It was right when they were starting. We have a new show with James Caan, and we have an idea for you, basically who you are on the Howard Stern show. We want you to be that guy in the casino. You're a comedian and you're performing in the casino. And Alec Baldwin wants to work with you. He wants to be your partner on the show. And so everything, because of Howard Stern, I've been paying my mom's bills and my bills for over 20 years. So I was really grateful for that. Yeah. The show in Atlantic City is just, it's a lot of impressions and a lot of stories about the people who I do impressions of. I've run into everyone that I do impressions of, and it's led to some unbelievably awkward moments. So
yeah, I bet. Yeah. And just really fast. So is there any celebrity that you've done an impression of that was not happy with you? Did anybody ever call you?
There's a few of them. Gene Simmons from Kiss got on a plane and flew to New York to confront me live on the air on the Howard Stern show. It was amazing. The end of my show is a piece of comedy I've been working on called "I Think Gene Simmons is Going to Kill Me." And and it's a series of stories of run-ins that I've had with him where I think he's playing a long game to destroy me and eliminate me. And it's happened a few times, and that's Yeah, when you come to the show, it's and Atlantic City is one of my favorite places to perform at.
I was gonna ask
Um,
you. I mean, I was born in Atlantic City. I'm from here. So what's your
were you
favorite?
really?
Yes, you met me.
You're kidding. Oh my
Born in
God.
AC.
It's just the energy of it. Like you don't realize that there's a vibe like that on the East Coast. And I just love it. I love the energy in the casinos. It's been years since I've been back. So I'm excited to go
Great.
back. And I've
Awesome.
never been to resorts. I never stayed at resorts. So
You're gonna
I'm
love
excited.
it.
I'm
So
excited about it.
So we got to
Yeah.
see Craig at Resorts Atlantic City for AC Jokes. You can get tickets at acjokes.com, or you can find more information at resortsac.com. And you'll be there Friday the 15th and Saturday the 16th. 2
This
shows.
weekend with special guest Don Jameson from That Metal Show, which is crazy. Don is showing up on Friday night. We're gonna have a bunch of comedians showing up all weekend,
Oh, this is
but
great.
Don asked if he could come in and perform with me. So he's going to be there as a special guest Friday night, and we have a lot of special guests this weekend. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Well, check out Craig Gass, guys, Atlantic City AC Jokes.
Thank you.